subject we're going to talk about. My name's Buzz Marson, one of the members of the board of directors, and it's great to see everybody bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and ready to go today. How many people were here yesterday that are here? Okay, see, that's a full house. Well, I'm going to have the honor next month in hosting these gentlemen and the whole team out there in Monterey at Laguna Seca for the continuation of the American Le Mans Series for as long as it lasts this year. And we're going to have one heck of a race, I hear. So if any of you are out that way, I cordially invite you to Laguna around May 9th, 10th, and 11th. And we're also going to be putting on a heck of a banquet between the National Corvette Museum and the Western States Corvette Council. So, and our top speaker is sitting right here. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dan Binks, the world's famous and best pit boss in the world. The very best and world famous race car driver. The mastermind of all of it. The guy that's a doctor in the science of auto racing and our very own team manager, Doug Fehan.
Thank you, partner. I have to say, and I think you guys agree, we've done this a couple of years now. I mean, I've done it more than a couple. Well, I have to tell you, this is a sellout crowd this year. I don't know what the deal is. It's only 8:30 in the morning. I think that's a secret. You must be, if your first thing, they don't get tired of the museum and they show up. So this is good. I think for format today, because we've got so many people, and I know you've probably got a lot of questions and a lot of interest, rather than have me rail on for 15 or 20 minutes with mindless babble, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on what we did last year, what we're doing now, what we're going to be doing. And then let's open it up for questions, regardless if it's for Dan or Tom or myself. And we'll spend our time just answering what might be on your guys' mind. That sound like a reasonable plan? That's good? Okay. I just as soon get your questions answered, and it might take me days of yakking before I could ever touch on what you wanted. I think, starting off this year, we had a tremendous amount of momentum from our championships last year. And you look at how hard these guys worked to make that happen. When you can pull down a manufacturer's championship, a team championship, a driver's championship, and then kind of frost that cake with a little bit of Michelin X Challenge championship, that's pretty cool. When you think about it, and we joke about it internally in the team, because again, at where were we, Long Beach, Jan and Antonio won the Green X Challenge for GT. And they just hate that. They hate that. Because I think it's indicative that they're not pressing on the gas hard enough. Okay? So, this is a true story. So they win it, and they're just, God, I can't believe we won that damn thing again. God, God. Yeah, just next time on yellow flags, he says, I'm not going to the lean thing. He says, I'm going full power. He says, I'm riding the brake and mashing on the gas. He says, I'm tired of winning this thing. And as he's walking down the pit lane to the podium, he has a Michelin hat on. He takes a Michelin hat and he throws it down on the ground and keeps on walking. It's funny to see that. But what it is a testament to how hard our engine guys work, because fuel economy plays a huge role in the success that we have, especially at the endurance races, like a Sebring or a Petit Le Mans or especially Le Mans. And our guys in the engine group are just dedicated to producing not only the most powerful product, the most reliable, durable, but also the most efficient. So it's kind of a cool thing. I like it. And I think it casts a very, very, very nice light on everything we're doing in racing, especially in the world today where being green does make some kind of sense. We've had a reasonable amount of good fortune this year. We went out and won Sebring, which is what I like to refer to in years past. It's kind of our Bermuda Triangle. You know, if something's going to go wrong, it goes wrong there. Dan got to live that on the 3-car this year. You know, one little wiring pin falls out, and it's an absolute disaster for the whole race. You saw Tommy put in a final 2 hours where he certainly earned his pay. And it's always good. It kind of sends a message that we're back and you're going to have to deal with us to the competitors, and I like that. We went out to Long Beach where we were victorious last year, and I think we had a great setup this year. Both cars prepped to win. You know, reasonable qualifying session. We move right to the front. We're kind of leading that race. The thing about Long Beach is that it's an unusual format, and it's only a 2-hour race. That means 1 pit stop. So your fuel window, depending on yellows, opens up kind of early. Idea is you stop as early as you can, then you have the whole rest of the race to work yourself back up. So lo and behold, just as you would expect, I mean the perfect storm, the first pit window opens up with that yellow flag, and we look at it really, really hard, but it was going to be just, if we'd have stopped for fuel, it was just going to be too close, too risky. You had to have a couple of decent yellows to get to the end. You were really taking a chance. You're leading the race. It's just not a decision you make. You say, you know what, we got to go to the next window. Well, lo and behold, when you're thumping everybody else and they can kind of see the handwriting on the wall, they have nothing to lose. So literally the entire field pitted on that early yellow and said, we're risking it. It wasn't 4 or 5 laps later, out comes the next yellow, which is going to give them enough fuel to finish, which is going to cause us to have to pit, go to the back of the pack, and then try and work our way back up in the time remaining. Just one of those dumb luck things. And that's the way that race is. You know, we've been the beneficiary of that in many cases, and obviously this year we weren't. But there again, we had 2 cars that were capable of winning. And I think we're still leading all the points. I think our driver guys are leading points, manufacturers, yeah. But it's tied, but because we were leading after the first wave. We're listed first. Don't go to the points column, just go to the left column. Don't worry about that. And then we're going to go up and have a great time in Monterey, and that's going to be pretty cool. C7 chassis is pretty much complete, and I think this week or next week it's moving into Dan's area. Those guys are going to jump on that and begin all the plumbing and wiring on that. And if everything goes well, when we get back from Le Mans, we'll be actually track testing that vehicle. So I'm sure the minute we unload it from the truck, there'll be some spy photos out there that you guys can drool over. It's going to be an exceptional car, as the production car is. If you haven't, I'm certain most have all of you had the opportunity to get up close to a C7? Yeah. Is it not just absolutely amazing? When you heard us all talk about it in the past, you remember we said, when you see it, it'll be undeniable how much impact the race cars had on that, and how hard Taj and Kirk have worked to deliver that product. It's as close to a race car as you can get. I get amazed every time I look at it. I was just in the other cafeteria area there, the assembly hall, and they've got a convertible and a coupe in there. And I mean, you look at that and you can just feel the race car, you know, kind of oozing out from under it. They've done a marvelous job on those guys. I can't be more proud and happy of how our relationship has prospered. So that'll take us up, and then we'll debut that car at the 24 Hours of Daytona next year. It'll be an amazing return, because the last time we were there was 2001, where I think we won overall. So we're kind of excited to get back there. So that kind of gives you just a brief summary that I'm sure has inspired you to ask so many questions. We'll open it up now and see what we can do to get you the rest of your curiosity satisfied. Who wants to start it off? First question. We'll go right down here. Is the extra weight trouble? I'm going to let the driver answer that. Yeah. No, Dan's worked with that weight for a long time. Not really a problem.
Good morning. So the question was about the extra weight that the rules makers added to us for Long Beach. They weren't too happy with us going a lap down, lap and a half down to Sebring, and then driving away back to the front, and then taking the win there. So we were just there's a very small window that the cars generally kind of fit in as far as performance goes, and we were just barely outside that window. And as Doug kind of mentioned, they don't like us winning a whole lot because that's all that Corvette does. It seems like an ALMS. So they did that at Sebring, and so they gave us 15 kilos or about 33 pounds, something like that. So as a driver, it's tough to really feel that in the car, especially going from a track like Sebring and then to Long Beach. So it's nothing that you notice right off the bat. It's one of those things that just the performance level is just lower just that little bit, so the car doesn't brake quite as well, doesn't accelerate quite as fast, doesn't corner quite as well. I think one thing we saw there that maybe was a sort of a factor in us not being right towards the front at the end of Long Beach was the extra weight causes more tire wear, brake wear, things like that. So we weren't quite as quick as we'd like to be right at the end of the race at Long Beach there. So some of those things that as a driver you don't feel particularly, but at the end of the race when you can't quite kind of keep up anymore, that's when you kind of back your mind and think that could be the extra 15 kilos, 30 pounds that we had from the last race. So these guys work so hard to figure out, we get this weight penalty and we just try to put it wherever it most benefits us. So in most cases we can, because the car is if you took all the extra ballast out of the car, it would be a lot lighter than what's allowed. So they always place the weight wherever is low down and in whatever the engineers say is best for the car. So hard to tell, but certainly doesn't help us.
Yes, sir.
Next year, the United Sports Park, when you end up going to Daytona with all the American awards, all the Grand Am cars there, has anybody talked to you about, you're going to have 130 cars on the track racing Sunday?
Actually, we're going to try and have 200. As long as you qualify up front, shouldn't be a problem. That's certainly a concern. Did everybody hear the question?
No.
With the combination of the two series and going to places like Daytona, how many cars are you going to have? Are you going to have 100, 120, 130 cars? It's very difficult for me to stand here and tell you what that's going to be, because I can tell you the guys who organize the series don't know. They haven't figured that out yet. So it's going to be a very interesting approach. Dan and I have been there before, and I think the most, I think we had 82 cars in one year that we raced. Yeah, and there's only 54 actual full-size pit stalls. So whether they have a deal where if 120 guys show up, you have to meet qualifying like you do in a NASCAR race, that might be part of it. They haven't given us any indication yet as to how they're going to do that. I'm pretty sure that we'll probably have a spot. But for how many others are going to be there, only time will tell. There's going to be any number of things like that go on next year that they don't really have an answer to, that I kind of think we'll figure out as we go along.
Are you going to have 2 cars or more?
No, we'll have 2 cars. 2 cars will be our standard team operation.
This way we can only rent 2 at a time.
Yeah. Next question. Way in the back.
Yeah, Tommy, I saw you at Sebring running 60 seconds behind and watched you come up 60 seconds or 64 seconds to win the race. How in the heck did you do that?
I have no idea. No, I mean, to be honest, part of that was the pit stops. When I got in the car, I was about to get in the car. I think at that point, Oliver was just over a minute behind, like you said there. And when I got back in the car and kind of got going a little bit there, Chuck, my engineer, came on the radio and said that the gap was, I think, 47 seconds, sort of 2 or 3 laps into my stint. And in my head, I thought, wow, I thought we were like a minute and 20 seconds back, and now we're 47. That was, I guess, pretty good. I mean, of course, the drive, my first thought is, well, my outlaps were really good. But obviously, I know it's more than that. So the guys, at Corvette Racing, I didn't know that in the mornings, those guys, they practice pit stops in the mornings, they practice pit stops at lunchtime, practice pit stops once they finish for the day. So literally every day they're practicing at the racetrack. They're practicing every single session. So all that practice paid off there. And then, you know, to be honest, the first hour of my 2-hour stint there, the gap, so it was 47 seconds, and I went down to, I think at the last gap that I was given was 43 seconds, and that happened kind of pretty early on in my stint, and then those updates stopped coming. So I thought, either he's now making a bigger gap, or I'm not closing anymore. I mean, I kept pushing, and then when I came to the last pit stop, Chuck, my engineer, again, kind of came on the radio and said, okay, the gap is 38 seconds, I think is what he said. And I thought, okay, well, you know, over an hour, I took out, let's say, 10 seconds on the racetrack with traffic and things like that. And obviously some quick math real quick, I thought, yeah, it's gonna be hard to do to actually pass this guy on the racetrack. But again, came in for the pit stop, came back out, and I think the gap then, once they had to change drivers. The driver that was in the car had some back issues, and his foot was going numb, so they put in a guy that hadn't been in the nighttime yet, which I didn't know at that point. Came back out, and now the gap was, I think, 17 seconds. And again, I thought, how is that even possible? You know, we push for tenths of a second on the racetrack, and then when the pit guys can take out 10, 15 seconds in a pit stop, that is huge. You know, I mean, even it's huge for just pure time, then it's huge for even that last hour to know that, okay, now I'm 17 seconds back. And I took out 10 seconds last time, and I thought, okay, you know, that last pit stop kind of gave me that little extra push to just literally lay every single ounce of effort on the racetrack. And it's definitely more fun being the one chasing it than is being chased. And once I could see his taillights, I don't remember this, but one of the crew guys said that when I came out of 17 and I could just see him kind of just passing start finish, that I flashed the headlights a couple times because I could see him. So, you know, it wasn't many laps after that where I saw a big dust cloud in turn 1. He had gone off trying to pass a slower car. And then at that point, I was very close, within 3 or 4 seconds. And at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to at least be close enough where I can at least sort of, maybe on the last lap, go for it at least and see what happens. But that wasn't necessary. I guess I was hounding him enough to where he was making a mistake. He made a mistake, and he was off 15 minutes to go. And at that point, you know, I didn't think it was over by any means, but I felt pretty comfortable that we had the car that was going to win the race, and that's what happened. So definitely one of the coolest moments I've ever had in a race car. To see that gap go from so big with 2 hours to go to win the race by only 2 seconds, something like that, was pretty special.
Telling us right now, hi, I'm Dan Binks. Right now, what they're telling us. Right now, what they're telling us is the rules will remain the same. So the cars are the same width, roughly the same height. The wing to the roof rule will stay the same. The amount of fuel that you'll have. The 5.5 engine will stay the same except for the Viper. You know, of course, they get their 8 liters and bigger restrictor to make them close. So.
Right now.
Have you heard anything about the tire deal yet with the Bird Series? You know, Continental versus being able to have our own
From the question is, have we heard anything about tire deal, or is Continental going to be in there? Who's coming? Who's going? Our series, the way we understand it, and understand this, whenever we talk about what's going to happen next year as far as the sanctioning body is concerned, is all we can tell you is what we know now. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be additional stuff, or that what we tell you today is going out the window tomorrow. So I'm just giving it today. Our series will remain exactly as it is. So we'll have whoever wants to come. It'll be Michelin, it'll be Dunlop, it'll be Falcon, it'll be Yokohama, whoever wants to come can come. The rest of the series are probably going to be tire controlled. So Continental, which is simply a name because I think they're Hoosier tires. So they'll be more controlled than GT. GT will remain exactly as it is. So no worries there. We'll have Michelin's. Yes, sir.
Tell us on the new C7R, which engine are you going to be basing on the NCM, and what about the future?
The engine that we're going to use next year is going to be exactly the same engine that we're using this year. There's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, we've got a lot of time and effort put into this engine: durability, reliability, performance, economy, okay? And as far as the sanctioning body is concerned, it's a known quantity. They understand how much power it produces. They're comfortable with it. If you remember back several months ago, near the end of last year, Taj came out and kind of extolled the virtues of the new production-based engine with variable valve timing. That strikes just an absolute ripple of fear, not only amongst our competitors, but amongst the sanctioning body. Oh my God, what are they bringing now? So when you look at the mountain that we have to climb to do all that, and by the way, you can't use variable valve timing in race, the rules don't allow it. So a lot of the advantages you're going to get in the production car, we can't use in the race car. It just makes a whole lot of sense for us to continue on with the exact same engine that we're using right now. So there won't be any changes at all to that. It'll be the same piece with the addition of direct injection.
Is that a Gen 4 architecture?
Oh, hell, I don't know. Gen 4, Gen 3, LS7, LS2, LS9. Now we're back to LS1. I mean, the guys in the engineering department don't know what it is. It's a Chevy V8, small block, makes a lot of power. Next question, right here.
Our Aero guys have been working really hard with the streetcar guys. Brake ducting, radiator ducting, the air comes in the bottom, goes out the hood. All of the rear brake ducts, front brake ducts. Jimmy's been testing those, making sure we have what we need. And I think more on this car, suspension geometry's been looked at. Because right now our rules say that you can be within 1 inch of the control arm, can move 1 inch in any direction, up, down, fore, aft, whatever. So we've actually dealt with some of the stuff. The front arms have been moved up on the streetcar to help us. It also helps you. So the things that we've learned are endless. The way the fuel cell is in the new car, we were able to make it 1 tank. The production car has 2 tanks, 1 on each side, but on our race car we were able to make 1 tank through the bottom of the drive shaft, where we weren't able to do that on the C6, so the car will fill faster. A lot of times our car is slower on fuel because it has 2 separate tanks, so we have to fill 1 tank and then the other. And where the Ferrari has 1 tank, the Porsche has 1 tank in the front. The Viper was able to get away with 1 tank with a connection, basically. So trying to think anything else that's helped us. The window angles, the way the roof is connected to the body helps us. There's less seams. Before in the C6 had a big seam across the back where it had like the target bar and then the top bolted on. That kind of hurt us, so the new car is a lot smoother in that area. The new headlights, we talked about that a little bit. We're meeting with the lighting guys next week trying to get enough light for our race cars. The street cars just don't make enough light to go 200 miles an hour consistently. So, but again, we're meeting with the production car guys. Doug will be there, I'll be there, and all of our engineering staff trying to do a study on that to see if we can get enough out of these cars, headlight work out of these cars. Next question.
This is a question for Tommy. We're all weekend racers, and we all love our Corvette. What's it really like to strap on one of these race cars?
I'm a lucky kid, that's for sure. I get to drive the most badass Corvettes on the planet. It's, I mean, just going fast, the speed, the competition, things like that. That experience is, you know, addicting, really. I mean, you know, once you kind of get kind of bolted in, like you said, and sort of surrounded in the whole racing team and things like that, to go out there and to look for every little last tenth of a second. I mean, I grew up playing sports, things like that. It's that sort of competitive nature within me, and to do it, you know, 175 miles an hour and, you know, pulling 3Gs and stuff like that in again, one of the most, you know, technologically advanced Corvettes there is. And then you see all the work, just the effort that goes into making that car go fast. You know, the guys from Pratt & Miller and Michelin and all the different, you know, Mobil One, all these different, you know, companies that we work with. I'm not just trying to be I'm not trying to be a NASCAR driver here and tell all my sponsors, but you see all that effort that goes into, you know, those last couple tenths of a second. So there's a lot of pressure sort of involved in that, driving the race car. And you know, you always have to be at the top of your game, but at the end of the day, I gotta, you know, drive this race car. That's my job, so to speak, if you want to call it that. You know, and drive that thing as fast as I possibly can. And you know, sometimes I have to, you know, do some damage to the car every now and then. It's fun. I couldn't think of anything, you know, better to do than that. You know, and even if it, honestly, if it, you know, even test days, you know, I mean, the racing is obviously fantastic, and that's a big part of it, but even just driving the car by myself on the racetrack, nobody else out there, that's a little fun.
You look good in the commercial.
It's too short though, I need more FaceTime.
How long did it take you to adjust having that rearward camera, that screen? You know, you train yourself in a traditional track car, looking in your mirrors all the time and using that as a visual. How hard was it to adjust to be able to look at that screen at speed?
Yeah, so the question about our rear view camera, basically, which is our mirror essentially that we use, that's difficult the first time that you use it, because you're used with an actual mirror, you can sort of gauge sort of depth better. When you have just a screen there, it's harder to see. I think a lot of you probably saw the radar system that we had on for Sebring, and that makes that a lot easier now for us as a driver to use that screen now, because now we have ways to see, you know, the clues to kind of give us that depth perception now with these different colored chevrons and things like that, and letting us know when cars are closing at high rates of speed, whether they're kind of falling back or if they're staying the same. So that is very difficult in that car, especially because the right side mirror with how we sit is so far to the right with our HANS device and everything else we're bolted in. It's hard to see that right side mirror, so you end up relying on just the left side mirror and then just the camera. And now with this radar system that we have in the car, that makes it a lot easier, because now I don't have to sort of study the screen anymore. I can, just out of my peripheral vision, I can see these different colors and these shapes that are showing up on the screen, and I can use them now to really kind of gauge that distance that I have from cars behind. So with that radar system now, it's actually a better system than actually having a window out the back and a mirror. Because now I get sort of very detailed information about what kind of car is coming, how fast are they coming, you know, has that car passed me now on one side, and with the arrows that'll flash and let me know what side of the car's passed me on. So now I can actually spend more time looking out of the windshield and less time kind of studying what's happening in that camera.
Tommy, I know it's a package, but could you tell us the one single thing that you like best about the C6R?
Yeah, there you go. That's right. We have the best. There's nothing like, you know, sitting there on pit lane, especially in a race condition, cars up on the jack stands. We've got all these systems in the car, so the car will start as soon as the tires touch the ground. Per the rules, you can't throw the car in the air. Once the car touches the ground, we just hold the button on the steering wheel and the car fires up and we take off, and that's just that, whatever, that 10 seconds there where you're sitting there waiting and the car's on the jack, car starts up, and I'm just holding it flat to the floor, clutch in, and as soon as the car, I feel any kind of rumble, I drop the clutch and nice big smoky burnout out of the pit lane. I'd stop for a second, wait for the pit speed limiter thing to, hold me back, and then, once I get to the cones there and push the pit speed limiter button again, just big slides, lots of noise, TC everything, and as fast as I can go, I'm down turn one, so that is the best part.
For you, Doug. As you know, the Corvette Museum sponsors high-performance driving events for those of us that like to use Corvettes the way they were intended. We sometimes at these events will get some dyed-in-the-wool race car drivers to come and drive our cars and give us a lesson. Most recently at Sebring, we had Andy Pilgrim, Johnny O'Connell, and John Langerke. What's the possibility of getting some of the current drivers to share their experiences for those of us who like to learn more about the high-performance driving?
Well, we're gonna have to make some arrangement, because those three guys, I think, are headed for the old folks home. Not sure how much longer they're gonna be with us. Joking, of course. As you know, all three of them have driven for the Corvette race program, including John Heinersee, who actually was with us for our inaugural races at Daytona and at Sebring. I think the chances are very good, and I'll tell you why. As we go forward, and I'm going to be back down here again, I think in July, Bob, for groundbreaking. June, end of June, I'll be back from Le Mans, hopefully. We get this Motorsports Park thing built, and we're going to do that with your guys' help, just like we built this museum with your guys' help. And the guys who came before you, give yourselves a round of applause. Things go to plan, we hopefully will be here a couple times a year, and we're going to be doing our own vehicle development and testing for the C7.R. Our plans would be right now to set that up once or twice a year, to have that be an actual event in which we would open it up and invite our Corvette enthusiasts and our Corvette fans to come down and, for the first time ever, watch us do a test and evaluation program, which usually goes for 2 or 3 days. So I can see opportunities on the front side of that and the back side of that, where we had all the drivers there anyway, and we can expand that program to incorporate those of you who would want to get private instruction or little test sessions with these guys. That's all the vision that's in my mind. I haven't cleared any of this with Wendell, of course. But that's a vision in my mind for what this Motorsports Park thing can be. I mean, it really, when you think about it, I mean, you get to go to the factory, you get to build your car, you get to build your engine, you get to come down here, you get to look at the history. But this actually allows you to do something. This actually gets you in a situation, in an environment where you actually get to drive the car. To me, this is something that Corvette owners have been probably dreaming about since 1953. And now we're just on the cusp of actually making this happen. To me, and these guys know this because they're with me all the time, they listen to me rail about it all the time, this is really what we need to get done. This finishes it right up, and this completes the circle. This allows you to look at a Corvette, aspire to a Corvette, build your own Corvette, learn about it, hang out with your buddies, and now you actually get to drive your Corvette too. To me, that's really what this is all about. To me, that's the end goal right here. So yes, that's a long-winded answer to your very short question. I'm looking forward to the opportunity when we can do that.
What I heard, Tommy, was these guys are going to let us drive their cars.
Yeah, that too. Yes, sir. What's the situation? Here's the situation. You get it. How many have ever come to Corvette Corrals? Okay. So you know, in there, every once in a while, I go off the deep end and I kind of give you the inside scoop. That's the beauty of that. You're gonna hear stuff come out of my mouth that you'll never read in the paper. Here's the deal, true story. The leader lights, you all know what that is, 1, 2, or 3 for second, third, and we haven't had them all last year, and thus far, not this year either. It's a supplier-based issue in finding the lights and the electronics that make it work. Apparently, the selection that was made for that system was based on a key individual and officer inside the ALMS's brother-in-law. True story, built that stuff and then went out of business. So there are no replacement parts, and now they're searching for a replacement for that. It's a very, very important aspect, as you guys recognize, for our fans who are astute enough to probably follow without it, but it makes the whole race a lot more enjoyable for everybody. So we hope to have that back. We want it back, but that's been the cause of it. You know, it was unit failures and no replacements and no decision made on how to replace it. We deal with that kind of thought process from the sanctioning body on a daily basis. So we're kind of used to that. Sounds to me like it's something Dan and I and Tommy could probably get fixed this afternoon. Okay, a couple of phone calls and we'll have it done. The parts will be there on Monday, and by Thursday we'll be running leader lights. Sanctioning bodies sometimes don't work that way. They're a lot like our government.
I really think the reason why the leader lights don't work is they just got tired of putting number 1 on Tommy's.
We only need one light on Tommy's, which should be easy. Yes, sir.
What's the color scheme going to be for the C7R?
What's the color scheme going to be for the C7R? Let me think. I think it's going to be yellow. And you know, this is a lot like flip-up headlights, okay? We got a lot of people who thought they were just the absolute best thing in the world, and why did we change? And then when we changed, then they kind of liked it. We have, you know, we kind of moved to yellow early on for a lot of different reasons, but the first and foremost is that from a photography standpoint, on TV and still photography, yellow car absolutely comes off the asphalt big time. I mean, it just pops off of there. And so, and it was a decision that I have to take responsibility for. Because the very first car, if you remember, was silver and black, which was a perfect camo. No photographer, no TV camera could pick it up on the racetrack. I mean, we were full stealth with that. That doesn't work very well when you're trying to get your picture on the cover of every motorsports magazine in the planet. So we moved to this yellow thing at my urging, and we now are at a point where essentially we own that color. If you go look at any GT race in the world, did you see any other yellow cars out there? Not one. I mean, you see a lot of black cars, blue cars, red cars, green cars. You don't see really any other yellow cars that are competing against it because we own that. We have a huge amount of equity in that, and we like that when guys are looking in their rearview mirrors. Because all they have to see is the color yellow, and the first thought is, oh, uh-oh. It's not the first thought, but that's, for this audience, it was an uh-oh. Yeah, exactly. As Dan said, kind of like when you see the flashing red and blue lights. That's what we like to create with the yellow. So yellow it's going to be. The scheme has not been decided, but you're going to see two cool things. When we go test the new car, I'm giving you the inside scoop now, because you're here, no one else getting this. The new car will be in camo graphics, okay? And I'll wait till you see that. It's actually pretty cool. Kirk Benyon did the camo graphics for it. I'm pretty excited about it. The race car graphics are underway. We'll have those hardened by July 1st because we have to understand, because we have a new logo, which I think they did a beautiful job on. Let's hear our new logo. Clap. Every piece of everything we own has to change. Every hat, every jacket, every sweatshirt, you know, everything. So we need to have our paint scheme down very, very early on. We're probably not going to tell you about it early on, but we're going to have it early on, and it will be yellow based. So no surprise there, I suspect. Yes, ma'am.
When the series merge, you're going to be
Can you fill out an application? Because I need a boss that's as cognizant of that as you are. Yeah, everybody hear what's going on here. We're going to be racing against the DP. Some of our drivers are full-time DP guys. So what are we going to do when we're at the same races together, like, well, the first one, Daytona? To answer your question, I have no clue. We will, here's what is, we've got a couple of different options.
Back to the old folks home.
Yeah, back to the old folks home. Those guys were cheap. They're happy to come back. I can really leverage that. Give Ron a call, get him back. Old home week. We've got a couple options. One would be to look at how those guys shake out in DP, whether or not it's of value to have them not run for a Daytona Prototype Championship. So we pull them out of the DP and we keep the lineup as it is, and then they find another, young driver or somebody else to drive the DP cars. Or we begin the search again, as we have always done at various times throughout our race careers here at Corvette, go and look at adding new drivers for that third driver. So I can tell you that although our management doesn't see that as a big problem, because they don't know that much about motorsports, I do recognize it as a serious problem, along with our fans who are pretty astute. Okay, and so we have begun that process. All right, I can tell you with a fair degree of assurance that you're not the only one to recognize that. So the world, the global universe of drivers, whose names I won't mention here, but whose names you would recognize right away, have already seen what you've seen and have already made the call to me to say, hey, looks to me like you're up with Greg without a battle. So yeah, a lot of best friends showed up. So we'll get that handled one of those two ways. So we might see some new guys, who knows. That's half the fun of it. Next question. Yes, sir?
The parity that you talked about, and Vance talked about earlier, Viper, last year couldn't compete with course challenge cars. They show up and win a pole. The new BMW looks more like the European touring car, body extension, motor, and that. I know that, you must get monthly updates on, they add weight to help. Seems like there's a disparity in trying to level the playing field with teams that haven't spent the time or efforts to get there from a technology and hardware standpoint. And the sanctioning body is quick to just give them adjustments and make it go faster.
So you notice that too? You guys notice that? Yeah, tuned right in. Well, we've got several different issues. We'll take Viper first. Okay. Clearly, it benefits everybody to have them competitive. And clearly, they weren't. And they needed a lot. And they got a lot. And they're at a point now where they are ultra competitive. And by that I mean in certain areas on a racetrack, they can outperform everybody else by the amount of power they have. They have an 8-liter engine with restrictors that are larger than ours at 5.5 liters. Most of that they had to have. And they have some other things, splitters, wings. I have every confidence the sanctioning body is going to go back and look at data at Sebring, they're going to look at data at Long Beach. And it's very, very complex and very accurate data. And there are some very strident parameters that are listed that everybody knows about, levels of performance, that if you exceed those windows, like we did at Sebring, you're going to get some sort of reward for that performance. and the way, dealing with the Viper, I have every confidence that they're going to, if that gets too far out of control, and we have that same data, so we can lobby for that if we see that. But that'll be taken care of. So I don't think we're extraordinarily worried about it this time. The BMW is a different deal. The BMW has been racing for us for however many years. They have never brought the right stuff. Never. They started out with a 4-door car, okay, a sedan. Then they come with a 2-door car, and now they come with whatever this thing is that they brought along and they're passing on with the Z4. On background, we have a system set up, and this is a global system, and I sit on this commission, where when you're building a new car, you submit your ideas and the things that we call waivers that you need, changes you need to make to the car to make it be competitive. As competitors, we all see that ahead of time, and then we voice our opinion to the sanctioning body. So we have a chance to review it, you know, do our technical review, and then we send in, yeah, that looks good, no, this doesn't look good, well, this looks okay, but blah, 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 blah. Then the sanctioning body, everybody does it. Ferrari sends it in, and Porsche sends it in, and Aston Martin sends it in. And then the sanctioning body reviews that, and then they make a decision as to what exactly they're going to do, based largely on our opinion, but not necessarily in accordance with what we say, okay? And we did that for the BMW. So the fact that they had to lengthen the wheelbase and move the motor back and change this and do that, well, it's an unusual car because it's so tiny, you know, it's a little car. What they didn't do, though, was run the bodywork by us. So when that thing showed up, it is not at all in the spirit of what the rules were, okay, which we found disturbing. Obviously, giving it some level of performance advantage, or it wouldn't look like it looks like. The most important thing, though, is it changes the dynamic on the marketing. Because the series is what we call silhouette series. The cars that you see look just like the cars you buy in the showroom. Well, that Z4 doesn't look anything like a Z4 in the showroom. And what's disturbing is if you begin a trend like that, it causes two things to happen. First and foremost, it would cause all the manufacturers to say, well, if you're going to allow that, then we got to go back in the wind tunnel and, you know, build ourselves a, you know, Tony DiLorenzo Le Mans car, some giant flying dragon looking thing. It doesn't look anything like the car you're driving, which is a huge amount of money to do that. And number two, it takes the whole concept of GT and flushes it down the toilet. And it ends a series. Right? No one has any interest. Marketing guys lose interest. Marketing guys lose interest. We don't have money. You don't have money. You don't go racing. It just doesn't make any sense. So I'll share with you what happened. We all saw that at Sebring, we all being the manufacturers. And we have a regular meeting at Sebring. We got together and said, you know, I mean, I knew what our feelings were. I wanted to share and see what the others were. Theirs mirrored our feelings. Each of us individually wrote a letter to the sanctioning body expressing our concerns, not necessarily with the performance advantage that the car had, but what it was doing to the marketing aspect of the series and how slippery a slope this is if you allow this to go on. So all those letters have been mailed, received, and are being digested. I don't think we're going to see any more BMW-like vehicles being built. Okay? We're not going to go back and do it. Aston's not going to do it. Porsche's not going to do it. Ferrari's not going to do it. Viper's not going to do it. So hopefully we'll nip that in the bud and it'll stop right there. Not that this is any solace, but BMW is working on a new GT car for the street. And so this is kind of an interim package that they've slipped in. Hopefully, in the 4th generation vehicle, they might actually bring the correct car to go racing. But that's historic BMW. As Tommy well knows, having come from that camp. This is a guy who used to drive the wrong car. In so many different ways. Next question. In the back.
Yeah, Dan mentioned about the fuel tank on the C7R. Do you expect a significant reduction in pit times due to the new car?
So the question was about the C7 fuel time. So let's give a little bit of history. We had those two tanks. We had slower fuel times than the BMW, than the Porsche, than the Ferrari for the whole year in 2011. 2012, we did a bunch of work over the winter, made the crossover better, filled the car about 3 seconds faster, and we were still about 2 seconds slower than the BMW or the Porsche. So this year we show up to Sebring and we worked on our car again, and we had the fastest fuel time. And they changed the rules between the first race and the second race. So it's kind of a bummer. You work on your stuff, the Porsche, the Ferrari, all those guys work on their stuff. Our stuff, the rules allowed us to work on our car a little bit more, and we made it faster, but we only had an advantage for one weekend. So it's kind of disappointing on that aspect. But you know, it's not a surprise to all you folks that they don't want the Corvette to win every race, okay? That's why the Viper is the fastest car on the straightaway. I mean, it's just how it is. The C7 will be the fastest fueling 110 liters into the car of any car that we've ever built. Will it be faster than the BMW? You just never know what they have in reserve to get it in. But our guys have done a lot of work. We made clear fuel tanks and did a whole study on how fast the fuel goes in, radius in the corners inside the tank. You're limited to a 38 millimeter restrictor. Now we're at a 36, but how fast the fuel can go in. Right now it's about 0.8 seconds per gallon, so it goes in pretty fast, but our job's never done. If we get an advantage, they take it away.
The thing I want to add is that we're, eventually you always fall victim to your own process. We had made such a big deal out of it over the last few years because you can ruin a race by having one car fill more rapidly than another. And it kind of takes the racing aspect off the table and makes it be something mechanical that it really shouldn't be. So we've worked very, very hard to have refueling times be part of the balance of performance. So when you have a huge discrepancy in there, you can be leading 11 hours and 20 minutes of a race, have to come in for your last fuel stop, and because it takes you 10 more seconds to take fuel than the guy who was running second, you lose. It shouldn't be like that. I mean, we want the racing on the track, we want it on the vehicle dynamics, and we want it on the driver's skill. We don't really want it on how long it takes you to put gas in the car. So we've lobbied very hard to have this parity there, as well, working in conjunction, as Dan said, with making ourselves quicker. And with our success of our lobbying efforts and the work of the crew guys, we turned out to be the fastest fueling guys. Well, now the tables have turned, the other guys are complaining. So they're gonna, and this is spreading over to Europe too now. We're gonna see, they're actually running fuel tests in Europe at the next events to try and reach some parity so that we can take that out of the equation. And it's actually a good thing. It saves us a lot of work and a lot of money trying to be faster than the next guy. Pick something, if it's gonna be a 110 liters in 32 seconds, then let's just everybody have that be a target, then we don't have to worry about it anymore. We can concentrate on other stuff. So it's been a long road on this fuel fill parity, fuel time. Yes, next question. Way in the back there.
Every time they sanction anybody puts extra weight on the car because you did good, how much effort do you have to put in to rebalance the car and get the chassis to do what you want it to do?
Endless. I'll let Dan talk about that.
All right, the question was, when they add weight, how much effort goes into where to put it and all that. Our engineering staff has a study, and it decides where the weight should be. It runs hundreds of laps, and it moves the weight around, and it says, okay, this is what you want. And obviously, we've developed that system over several years, so it needs to be as low as it can be. Some tracks want more front weight, some tracks want more rear weight, but our computer stuff that predicts the lap time can predict where that weight needs to be very fast, and usually when we show up with the weight on the car, we don't move it hardly at all, so they do a great job. There's places like Laguna Seca where forward traction is a big deal, but you also need to turn really well. So ideally, the weight would be in the middle of the car. So there's things that we do on where we put it, but it's as low as it can be and normally as close to the center as it can be.
And to be clear about this rewards weight, it's not an outcome-based reward. In other words, they don't punish you for winning. Each track has a series of loops that are embedded in it, and so they have the ability to look at segment times, braking, cornering, and acceleration rates. So when they make, we knew when we got done with Sebring that we were going to get penalized. We knew we had moved outside the performance window that would have kept a balance. But when you compare that to winning the race, we couldn't. It made no sense for us to really control our performance and forfeit a victory that these guys had worked so hard for. So we made the conscious decision to not do that, and we knew we were going to get rewarded for it. But it's not just based on outcome, it's based on a whole series of technical data that's collected during the course of the event. It's pretty scientific, and for the most part, pretty fair. So we don't have a lot of room to complain when they do that. Yes, sir?
Like
hands down Le Mans. I mean, I grew up racing bug-eyed sprites with my dad, you know. Loading all this stuff up and going to France is unbelievable. And when you walk out on that podium and they play the national anthem, it's pretty cool.
It has to be Le Mans for sure. There's no other race. I mean, I've been to Indy twice now, and that's a huge event for sure, but there's just something, and I don't know if it's because I grew up around sports car racing and that's what I know, but nothing can touch Le Mans. There's nothing like the atmosphere there, the history, you know, what it means to just be there itself, but you know, and then to actually win the race, as Dan said, and stand on the podium there and just see a sea of people, and I mean, that's, you can't beat that.
Well, for me, it's the 3 Bs, beers, brats, and babes. That would be all our
Patron?
It's hands down. Somebody's got to pick up the slack. It's. How many have been to Le Mans? I mean, it's truly a bucket list deal. 2011, National Geographic declared it the best sporting event in the world. This is National Geo. This isn't, you know, Motor Trend. It is just serious. And I tell the story, and those of you who have listened to me before, when you come down the hill, there's only one way in, and you make that little right-hand corner, and you see those 3 bright red spires. I get goosebumps just talking about it. It is the absolute penultimate test of man and machine, and it's done on a global stage with the best competitors in the world. To emerge victorious from that event is unlike anything you would ever experience in your life. Truly amazing, captivating, and very addictive. As hard and as brutal as that thing is, and it will kill you, you can't wait to go back the next year. It's incredible. It's an amazing feeling. Nothing like it. Next question. Yes, sir.
For Dan, back to the weight in the car, the reward weight. Does the weight have to be together in one place, or can you spread the weight around the car?
The question was on the rewards weight, if you have to have it in one piece, or can you move it around? You can move it around. The rules are that the car has to weigh 1275 now for us, and we roll through, and it just has to weigh that much. So we can move, you know, our smallest pieces of tungsten are about 5 pounds. We use tungsten instead of lead. In the old days you used lead, but it's lead's really soft. Tungsten's, you know, you can bolt to it, you can make panels out of it. It's very expensive, but it's free where I work.
Yes, sir.
Next year, you're adding, we had race season, but you're adding a 24-hour race. It'll be 4 endurance races. How's that going to affect you in the shop with the type of materials you're going to use, wear and tear on your cars, things like that? I mean, it's adding a considerable amount of extras for you.
So the question is, basically, we're going to have more endurance races, how to prepare for that. Basically, for me, it's just more new parts, which is as cool as it gets, okay? I mean, yeah, it's still free. You go up to the parts department and sign it out. All I got to do is sign my name and I get free parts. I mean, it's really cool.
Technology works for you, so you can use parts over, or you throw away parts for you.
They're throwaway parts. I mean, basically, the design staff has used FEA. They design all the parts as light as they can be, but they have impact targets. We have load targets from Motorsports, which is super high. They're built to that design, and the goal is roughly the parts will go 5,000 miles. So we'll build an upright, it'll run 5,000 miles, and then we take it off and it goes on the shelf, and our customers, Labre or V8 now has a GT2 car. We sell those parts to them, and then they can decide how long they want to run them. But we only, like the suspension parts, only run 5,000 miles. So roughly, we'll have a brand new set of suspension for Sebring, and we'll have a brand new set of suspension for Daytona. which I'm super excited to go back there. The last time I was there, I won as well with Paul Newman. It was very cool. But it's just more parts. Doug has to get us some more money to pay for that, but I don't worry about that. All they ask me to do is do the best job, and it's easy. We write down when the part goes on, and we write down when the part goes off. It's very simple. It's like an airplane. Our guys are, I tell them, if you have any doubt about any part on that race car, put it upstairs. It's not worth us taking a chance on a $5,000 part. Even at Long Beach or, you know, wherever you go, you saw what a wire does to us. I mean, a wire can ruin your day. If it costs $10,000, we need to throw it away and get another one. It's just how it is.
I think in a practical approach to this, when we look at what we're going through right now, I mean, obviously we're embarking upon an important aspect of our season. You like to get a good start on 2013. In conjunction with that, we're back at the shop building the C7, same guys. And when you look at our time frame, debuting C7 now, we're debuting it at Daytona, which is the end of January. We're not debuting at Sebring, which is the beginning of March. So that time frame has become dramatically compressed. We've got to take a brand new car that might hit the track, pick a number, July 10th, and we have to have it ready at the end of January. Ordinarily, we'd have it ready July 10th, and we wouldn't have to have it ready till the middle of March. So these guys are under the gun. I mean, it's a huge workload for them. They dismiss it because they're used to doing it. I'm just telling you that it's a serious, serious deal when you have to try and continue to race throughout this season. So we're going to be racing and building and developing. First car comes off, then we've got to build 2 more, the actual race cars. We won't race the first test car, that becomes our spare car. So they've got a ton of work ahead of them, and in a very, 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 very compressed time frame. It's going to be a serious challenge. We've been there before, we've learned from it, we've got good organization and to deal with it, but it still comes down to just humping man hours, and it's going to be long days and nights at the shop for these guys. And you can take across the board, generally speaking, average about 100 miles an hour. Some might be a little quicker, some might be a little slower, but if you pick 100 miles an hour, that's a pretty good average. There for 24 hours, if it was all green flag, you'd run about 2,400 miles. So you can use that uniformly, whether it's a 6-hour race or 10-hour race. That's a good rule of thumb. So it's about that distance. And we'd have to go back and look in the record books and see where we were and how many we got done. You know, same thing at Le Mans. Yes, sir.
Tommy, in Long Beach, there was a blue LED in your front bumper. I was wondering what that was. And as a driver, what's your favorite track to drive, just as far as?
It's a secret. I can't say what that blue LED's for. It was something Night Ride or something like that, right? No, it was a way for the crew guys and then on TV for them to be able to spot our car easier at night at Sebring. And it was left on our car for Long Beach. I think you guys took yours off. Yeah, there's a smash. So
One of those replaceable parts.
That's all it is, basically, just a way to identify the car easier. And your second question again was?
As a driver, what is your just favorite track you've ever driven?
There's so many tracks that are fun. If I pick one sort of over here on this continent, I like Road Atlanta a lot. That one's fun, really quick, sort of high-speed corners. It's tough in our GT cars. Motorsport is one also. That's a lot of fun to drive. A track that I think is the most challenging and one that, kind of going back to the question earlier about, just loving my job and what I do. The Nürburgring, the old 24-mile track, whatever it is, that one is, in the cars that race there now, those GT3 cars, it is the most unbelievable experience. It is one of those things that when you drive, you don't think about how fast you're going over these places and sometimes getting all 4 wheels off the ground. And like you saw, I raced the GT3 Corvette there last year, and at Flugplatz, one of the early corners on the old track, I was about, 2-3 feet off the ground with the front wheels in qualifying. And when you see that afterwards, you think, man, I'm going really fast. And I only have 2 wheels in the ground, I should have 4. And I have to turn right at about 130 miles an hour, not long after that. So that's one of those tracks that the lead up to going there, you get really excited about. And then when you drive, you obviously kind of put those dangers kind of out of your mind, but then when you leave, you leave thankful that you've left with all your limbs and no damages to your body for sure, but that's what makes it so much fun.
So, are you gonna run a GT3 this year too?
I won't this year.
Where, you're talking about marketing and everything, now with. It's really hard for us to watch the events. Either we get, you have to watch live streaming feeds that sometimes don't work, right? Or we have to watch a stupid recap on CBS that you miss half the race because they have to stress.
We don't want to limit CBS's stupidness just to the recap. I think going with the question, what can we look forward to? Okay, question is that our television package is something less than we have all dreamed of. And will that be improving? I think it's safe to say that in 2014, with the amalgamation of these two series, that the TV package will improve significantly. That still doesn't say much because it's so pitiful now. But it is going to get better. And here's the thing to think about. And this is marketing talk now. You know, everybody can gravitate to speed, and we all do that. And it's a known topic. They have great announcers. They have understanding of the sport. They know the teams, the drivers, and so we're steady Eddie with a great performance across the board. Here's the problem with speed. It is a zero growth market. It is just flatline. It doesn't get any smaller, and it doesn't get any bigger. You simply can't grow the business sticking with speed. Satisfies all of us, but you can't grow the business. In this world today, you have to figure out a way to grow the business. This is perfect timing for these series coming together. If you've noticed at NASCAR races, if you haven't read about it, you've seen it on TV, guess what, guys? They got empty stands. It's a big problem for them, and quite frankly, they don't know how to fix it. And I don't know how to fix it. Well, I do, but I'm not going to tell them. You look at IndyCar, which can't find its butt with two hands and a flashlight. All right? Big problem. Their fans have walked away. Well, those fans haven't quit loving things that go fast, smell bad, and cost a lot of money. They just don't have any place to go. Guess what? We got a place for them to go. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to put together a comprehensive television program. How do you move off that flat line? You move off the flat line with network. Because network has a huge audience, 2 or 3 times what speed brings you. So you're going to get an occasional viewer, a new viewer, a channel clicker guy or girl. Then you have the opportunity to expand your marketplace. So I think what we're going to see is a flatline satisfier consumer with a speed top. I don't know what they're going to call it now. They're changing their format too, but it'll be the Motorsports channel that carries us, and then we'll mix that with some great network opportunities that'll be there, and hopefully we'll improve network to the point where you have announcers that actually know the cars, the drivers, and the rest of the thing, and they know how to do a broadcast. So it's going to get much better. The internet thing, which by the way is an HD signal. Those of you that have done it successfully probably like it, although you're in the minority that have A, figured it out, B, have access to it, and C, it's actually worked at the time you watched it. But to get an HD signal on a 60-inch LED TV screen is a pretty cool deal. Here's the thing. We're talking about growing the marketplace. Guys, this is a television for the world that's coming behind us. They don't sit in front of the TV. They're people, young people, who actually watch an entire movie on this. But when you grow up with it, it's different. And we have to understand that. We have to comprehend that. We have to be able to react to it. When you think about walking around with this thing in your pocket, so you can do any number of things with your life. You can be any place on the planet. And you can take your phone out. I don't know why they call it a phone. You can take your apparatus out. And you can watch a race. Back to the small screen. that's a market that we can't deny. It's a market we have to pay attention to, and it's a market we have to figure out, because that's a market that's going to help grow the sport. It may not be something that we're adept at or that we're really tuned into, but I can tell you there's a whole universe of young people out there that's all they know. They would be amazed to find out that a phone actually at one point in time had a cord on it. I see you're up here. That means you want to get going, don't you? No?
As long as we have questions.
All right, let's do one more. Okay, yes, sir, yellow hat again.
You talk-
Dan, this is gonna be about weight.
All right.
This may be more for Tommy, but you talked about different tracks and why you like them and so forth. And there's a favorite track amongst a lot of HPDE guys that we go there a lot, as well as them sponsors HPDEs there. And you guys raced for the first time last year, and I'd like to know what you think about and how you like VIR.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite tracks for sure. Some tracks for a driver, at least especially, there's some tracks that I just don't like because I've never had success there. No matter how much fun it is to drive, I still might hate a certain track. But VIR is one that is fun to drive. I've had success there. I got my start in GT racing at that racetrack, and it was pretty cool last year to clinch the championship last year at VIR. So pretty cool sort of circle there with my career at that racetrack, and it's in my home state, Virginia, so that's obviously another cool part about it. You know, that's one of those things you hear from a lot of European drivers that come over to the U.S. to race, and we have some of the coolest racetracks in the world for sure. You always hear those guys talk about how much fun Road Atlanta is, VIR, Laguna Seca, Road America, Watkins Glen. I can go on and on and on. All these great racetracks that are sort of that your traditional, you know, fun, you know, sort of placed, taking a landscape and just a racetrack kind of placed amongst the actual landscape there. VIR is one of those racetracks. It's fast, it's got some difficult corners to it. It's in a beautiful part of the country, so that one is always fun to go to. I was happy to see it was on the schedule last year, it's on again this year, and hopefully we can go back again in the future.
You had a look at the Circuit of the Americas outside of Austin yet?
We tested there last year, at the end of last year. Really cool racetrack, cool city. What's that?
One of the newest tracks.
Yep. It's fantastic. It'll be a great race. This year, I think we go there in September. I'm excited for it. You know, just us testing there. Obviously a new track is for any driver now. It's fun to go there and see what it's like, and to have a world-class Formula One, you know, racetrack at our disposal and racing on it is very cool. It's going to be a big race for us for sure. It's one of our last races. You know, that's sort of the complete opposite of a Road Atlanta or a VIR, things like that, where any mistake you make at those tracks, Road Atlanta, VIR, Laguna Seca, you are penalized pretty heavily if you make a mistake there. Whereas a track like Austin, you can make some mistakes and there's tons of runoff room and things like that. So that obviously, as a driver, it gives you more confidence to just go for it. If it doesn't work out, we'll just spin and you just get going again.
Well, we like it because it's close to a really large market.
Yeah.
And draw some fans who've never.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, I mean, we raced in Houston there for a couple of years, which was not my favorite racetrack in the world. Racing in a parking lot, basically, with a ski jump around a right-hand turn. Which, but this is a real proper racetrack, and it's going to be. I mean, there's sections that'll be tough for some of the faster LMP cars to get by, but I mean, our GT class, that racetrack is going to be a huge fight. It's going to be fun.
Sort of building on that question, with the merger of Grand Am and the ALMS, what would be the Tommy Milner track schedule for next year?
Wow, yeah. So Daytona, Sebring, first year races, that was sort of a historical thing in sports car racing, the 36 hours of Florida. Road Atlanta, Laguna Seca, Road America, Watkins Glen, VIR, Mid-Ohio, Sears Point, Motorsport, there you go, thank you, perfect. That's it, 10 races, done.
Two more questions from the audience.
Yeah, are you gonna be taking the C7R to any of the races this year, to race before or after, as far as
Question is, will we be taking the C7R to any races this year to do some testing with either before or after? And the answer to that question is no. No. Next question? No. Let's do one or two more. That was a short answer. Gentleman in the back.
Is there any chance we'll bring World Challenge back to run the day before ALMS?
Is there any chance that World Challenge would come to run the day before ALMS? I honestly have no answer for that. They operate totally independent of our schedule. The World Challenge does their own thing. I mean, it's always great when we're together. It's kind of cool. And we had a little bit of that at Long Beach because they were there. I love them as a support series for us because it expands our fan base, lets you see both cars, to your point, which is probably the reason you asked the question. They haven't announced their schedule, we haven't announced ours, so it's who knows. We'll keep our fingers crossed. I hope there's more than just a couple, though. That's our feeling. We like it when it's together. One more, way in the back, red hat.
Given the first couple of races, the new competition, some of the challenges you've already experienced, what are your thoughts leading up to Le Mans?
Well, the question is based on what we've seen for the first two races. What about Le Mans? It's going to be an absolute dogfight. It's probably going to be the most competitive Le Mans that we've experienced thus far. Not that we haven't had great fights with Ferrari and Aston, but now we've got everybody being super competitive. BMW will not be there. They're not racing at Le Mans, but that doesn't really matter because what the rest of the teams are bringing is going to be good stuff. It's going to be an absolute battle. We're ready. We're looking forward to it. We like it when it's like that because it makes victory so much.
Doug, I've got one more question for you, and it may be a long one or a short one, but you've put a lot of time, a lot of sweat into the corporate ladder to get Corvette racing where it is today. How is the support from GM corporate today with the new GM compared to the old GM? Are you getting more support, less? And I know you're a transparent guy, so.
Yeah, but I still like to show up for work tomorrow. I can tell you, let's go right to the top, and we're talking about Mark Royce, President of General Motors North America. And it was 2011, last time we emerged victorious from the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and in one of my more masterful marketing moves, the 3 M's, masterful marketing move, I took Mark Royce, the 4th M, up to the podium when we accepted our trophy. He got to experience what we all have experienced. And I want to tell you, we came down from there and he said, an experience I will never forget. He is a huge supporter. He gets it. By the way, he has a Corvette fire suit that he carries in his personal vehicle with him. Because if he happens to be out Milford Way, he calls him up and says, I'm coming out, I want to do a couple laps. True story. The guy is a huge advocate of what we're doing. He understands the value. He gets it, more so than most. He doesn't get all of it yet, but he's learning. I got a few more years with him before we get him straightened out totally. But he's a great supporter, and we've not had any issues. I think everybody understands how iconic of a brand we have created in the motorsports marketing world, how it's not just the great America's sports car, it's now the world's sports car. It's a big deal, and it's working, and he understands it, and we're going forward. That's why we survived. Short story, there were 8 or 9 motorsports programs before our economic collapse. Post to that, there were 2, NASCAR and ourselves. Actuaries decided what was going to go forward, not GM people, not racers. They looked at all those things, saw the value that they brought, and they said there's only 2 that are worth keeping from their perspective. NASCAR took a 50% budget cut. We went straight forward, no untouched. That's the value we bring back, and we do that because we got you. You are the guys. More so than anything else we do.
a live auction coming up shortly after this. We're going to set up for that. I'm going to ask if you three gentlemen can kind of stick around to autograph some things for the live auction.
We'd be happy.
But I tell you, all three guys here, especially you, Doug, you bring poise, wisdom, and certainly a touch of humor up here. But again, congratulations on the past seasons, and we're looking forward to Laguna Seca and the rest of the season.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss, just in closing, I mean, we're looking around this room, and I've done this for a lot of years, and it's standing room around the outside. This is really the first time we've had this large audience, and I can't tell you the impact that it has on us. Not that we don't work hard every day, but to see this kind of support for what we're doing, this kind of interest in having fans that are as knowledgeable and as dedicated and as passionate as you, serves as a driving force to move us forward. It sends a huge message to our management, allows us to go forward, and it also empowers Harlan and Taj and Kirk to be able to go back and do what they need to do to get you the better product. There's not another brand in the world that does what we do right here. Not another brand. All of you guys, give yourselves a round of applause.
Okay, we've got time for just a short break before they get set up for the live auction. And again, thanks, guys.